So I wanted to just share a little bit more detail on GeoChatGPT. I've had some conversations this week, some interesting conversations this week, which has kind of evolved the thinking. So to start with, I think that the value that something like GeoChatGPT brings above and beyond ChatGPT in the geospatial world are really twofold. Number one, it brings in folks that don't understand and don't live in the geospatial world. So people can ask simple questions and get geospatial output. And we'll talk about that in a bit more in a moment. And the other thing is we live in this we live in a very fragmented geospatial world. So we have experts in all these different domains. We've got GIS experts, we've got remote sensing experts, which focus on different data sets, LiDAR, hyperspectral, etc., etc. We've now got this emergence of the satellite industry, and again, all sorts of sensors going up there. There's a conversation around the value of satellite data versus that closer to the ground, and there's sort of competing interests. It's funny, I was laughing with somebody a couple of days ago where we said it was almost like kids in a room sort of squabbling over stuff. So you've got these fragmented expert world, and I think geospatials remains an expert landscape, and the need to bring in people who don't understand geospatial but have geospatial questions. So I think that's at the sort of heart of GeoChatGPT. There are three elements to the process that the output from GeoChatGPT. Number one, I've shared this in other videos, is the ingredients, and I use a sort of cooking analogy here. What are the ingredients that we need actually to solve a particular problem? So that's the first step. The second step is the recipe. So that is the steps to actually get there. And again, I've emphasized that that second piece is only as good as the database you're using. And if ChatGPT is using various databases from across the web, etc., etc., more often than not, those instructions aren't there. So ChatGPT won't be able to come out with the recipe, as to how to get to that place of a solution. And I think the important piece that came out of this week is for that second piece. That second phase is where GeoChatGPT would come out with a recipe, a list of instructions about how to take those ingredients and build out what you need, that final meal. That's an important stage because that provides the ability for the person asking the question to actually input their own thoughts on it. And more often than not, that's going to be an expert that comes in and says, no, that step is incorrect. So the learning side of the generative AI world and ChatGPT and GeoChatGPT is really important. So it isn't just spitting out an answer that it thinks is the right answer. It's actually asking for feedback and then learning from that feedback. That's how this separate database, which would form the heart of GeoChatGPT, would be built and enriched over time. And then the third piece is really that cooked pizza, using again the analogy. So to actually output a map, and that's a different mechanism to what a normal ChatGPT type solution would be able to provide. That's text to text. What we're talking about with a map, and I've seen some early examples of people trying that in OpenStreetMap, is an actual text to some geoprocessing on the back end which understands those instructions and produces something. And again, in simple terms, that would not be a complex site selection, for example. Maybe over time that would evolve, but initially that would be simple outputs, shapefiles, etc. I think what's important again about that third stage is it's guided by the second stage. So if the instructions for what that third stage would follow are from that second stage, and if there are corrections made by a geospatial expert, for example, who sees a mistake that GeoChatGPT comes out with, then that makes the output ultimately more accurate. So it's an interesting journey we're on, and I think as we map it out and we think through the pieces, it's quite clear what each of those phases do within GeoChatGPT, those three phases, and the importance actually of each of those three phases. And I think that what I've just described here is really more broadly the future of that whole world of generative AI. So there we will have ChatGPT, which will become more sophisticated and do ever more things, but we're going to see these offshoots of the same technology, but with specific, very focused databases. And in this case, it would be geospatial, but I've mentioned before, travel ChatGPT, made that one up. But you'd be able to ask questions and really narrow down your travel plans, pulled from not just from APIs on the web, but also from a very dedicated database. Maybe it's Photos or Lonely Planet that build that, or I know Kayak are doing some work there. So I think this maps out the future of this type of technology, and it's incredibly exciting future. Thanks for watching.